Welcome to Podcast 360, powered by the Podcast Academy. In 3 questions answered in 60 seconds each, you'll experience a 360-degree view of podcasting from a lineup of industry experts. The hosts of your favorite podcasts will take turns interviewing each other, creating a chain of podcast knowledge and perspective. Let's meet our industry experts. Today's host is...
Hi, I'm Molly Wood, host of several podcasts, including Everybody in the Pool, It's a Thing, and WorkLab by Microsoft. You heard me last week when I was interviewed by Patty Hirsch, host of Evolving Money and the Outthinking Investor podcasts.
And who is our guest this week?
Hello, I'm Tom Merritt, host of It's a Thing, as well as Daily Tech News Show, and I own a company called Subbrilliant, which produces podcasts across technology, entertainment, lifestyle, and more. I've been podcasting since 2005 when I started doing a show with Molly Wood.
First, the game before the game. We ask our guests to share 2 truths and a lie. Our hosts will guess which is the lie, and we'll find out the answer together at the end of our conversation. Let's play Podcast 360.
All right, Tom, thank you for joining me on Podcast 360. It is great to still be podcasting with you after almost 20 years.
Likewise.
Yeah, it's great to be the oldest podcasters on the internet.
Yes.
What's bad to say about that? All right, we're going to jump right into Podcast 360 with a round of 2 truths and a lie. I do want to remind our audience we have been podcasting together for 20 years, but that doesn't mean I know everything. Just a reminder, Tom, you will provide your facts, but then hold the correct answer until the end of the conversation when I will guess and you will reveal the lie. Are you ready?
I think so. This was hard.
I know. I stressed it too.
I have told you all my stories, I feel like. So I'm relying on deviousness and bad memory to hopefully prevail.
Faulty memory is always a good fallback, really.
All right. Here are my 3 items.
Okay.
Number 1, Wolf Blitzer once apologized for stepping on my foot.
Okay.
Number 2, I have seen 2 U.S. presidents in person. Mm-hmm. Number 3, I once hit the dance floor with Bill Gates.
Okay, we have
He was the guy who started Microsoft, if anybody,
Right. We were there. Just kidding. We were not there. We go back, but not that back. Okay, so presidents, Bill Gates. Say the first one again.
Wolf Blitzer once apologized for stepping on my foot.
Wolf Blitzer.
He's the CNN
sorry.
guy for anybody.
He's the CNN guy for everybody who doesn't go that far back. Oh, Lordy. Okay. All
I
right.
think he's still around. He's still
around. Yeah, he's still doing it.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. You've seen 2 presidents in person. I believe that because I feel like all the presidents made a whistle stop tour in our home states. Wolf Blitzer was sorry he stepped on your toe, I think. I have heard that story from you. And you were on the dance floor with Bill Gates is the only one I don't buy because I don't think that guy dances. So I'm going to say that's the lie. Don't tell me, but that's my guess.
I will say one of those 3 is the lie.
Tom is nothing if not a deeply accurate person, friends. All right. We got 2 truths and a lie in the can. Now I'm going to ask you 3 questions related to podcasting. You will have only 60 seconds to answer each, and then we will pick one of those subjects that we covered and talk about it in a little more detail. I already know which one it's going to be, I think. Okay. Should we do this?
Let's do it.
First question. Mm-hmm. What or who do you think is the most essential element of producing a good podcast?
Ooh, what? I'm going to go with what.
Okay.
The essential element for producing a good podcast is tone. And that can be expressed in a lot of different ways. It's the banter, it's the way you present, it's the enthusiasm for the topic that comes through in your voice, it's your attention to detail, your ability to explain. It's tone that makes people have fun listening to the podcast. Mm-hmm. And that's why somebody like Dan Carlin can have great tone and a great podcast with no one else but him, because he's able to engage you. Or I like to think that Molly and I, when we do It's a Thing and Buzz Out Loud in the past, had great tone between us, right? Yeah. And great banter. So I'm going to say that to me, with a lot of other things that should be important, is the most important thing.
I like it. Okay. Next question. I have always and will always credit you as the person who fundamentally understood and understands how to build a good podcast audience. I came from ivory tower journalism, and Tom was like, we got to be in the forums talking to humans. And I was like, I don't know if we can do this. And you were right all along. So as the ultimate expert on this topic, my teacher, my guru, how do you build a good podcast audience?
there's lots of things, more than you could really fit in 60 seconds, right? But I think the important thing is to be one of them. And that's a bit of a cheat, because as a host, you'll never be one of them and you shouldn't be one of them, but you have to be of them, right? You're all bonding over your love of whatever it is you're podcasting about. So share that with them. And I think right up there with that is include them. And that can mean different things for different kinds of podcasts, right? So it could mean just reading emails from people and saying, oh, this is a great insight. Thank you for sharing with us. It could be, having viewers call in or listeners call in. It could be getting in a Discord. It could be having a live chat room, but including them so that they feel like, oh, no, this show actually cares about me. I care about it and it cares about me. I think that's where I'm going to put it at, to stay within the time limit.
60 seconds is brutal.
Yeah.
I agree, though. I mean, I think if anything, I learned from you, put your audience on your show and get to the point with them where when you encounter them in public, you're just picking up a conversation that you have been having for some amount of time, maybe 20 years.
The show never really ends in people's minds, right?
Exactly.
Like shows we love, we're always thinking
It's like Seinfeld. I don't know where that came from. Okay, here is my spicy question now that neither of us, at long last, are attached to a traditional media outlet. What do all this time later media outlets get wrong about podcasting?
Yeah, there's so many. No, if I had to say the thing that media outlets often get wrong about podcasting is thinking they have to do it. Like, well, I guess we need to do podcasts. So what is the podcast? George, go do the podcast. I don't care what it is, but they say we have to have them. And your audience isn't going to be interested in that if you're doing it to check a box. What media outlets do when they get it right is they say, who's enthusiastic about doing a podcast? And what does our audience want to hear them talk about? Let's not just read the same thing that's in the rest of the media outlet, whatever it is. Let's engage in the podcasting as a format. So you have to be enthusiastic for the medium. You have to find somebody to do that for you.
Yeah. All right. I like this answer. And that is what I want to talk more about. By the way, I'm just going to remind you that Tom, I think, mentioned like 3 of the 15 to 17 podcasts that the man does on a weekly basis. So like just go find all of them if you aren't already listening.
Podcast 360 will be back in just a moment. And we're back with Podcast 360.
Okay. Is there something you want to expound? Of those 3 questions, what would you like to dig a little deeper into?
I mean, I could talk about the community forever.
Yeah.
But it does feel like there's more to say about how people could make better podcasts, right?
Well, I wonder if those are somewhat the same topic. Because I actually,
That's a good point. Yeah.
If you had asked me that question, I would have said the thing that most media outlets get wrong about podcasts is they think, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money off of this.
Yeah.
when, sorry, friends, you're not. But you are going to build an army of people who will support your brand.
Yeah. And I think that, if we go beyond the 60 seconds, like, first of all, don't just do it to check a box or to check that box because you're like monetization, right? Get somebody who's enthusiastic, who can bond with the audience. And let's trail right into there. Have them engage with the audience. Have them talk to them on the various social media platforms that they are at, right? And it won't be the same for every show. But I think a great example of this is the Best Podcast in Baseball by Derek Gould at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, because you can tell that he and Bernie Miklasz, who started the podcast, started it because they thought it would be fun. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you can tell that the St. Louis Post-Dispatch was like, well, we need to have ads on this, and I guess we have a podcast now. And Bernie Miklasz left the Post-Dispatch, but Derek kept doing it. And you could tell he was doing it because he enjoyed it. And he was always talking about, I saw what you said in the reviews. I saw what you said on Twitter. I heard what you said on the radio call-in show. And that is the reason that podcast has been around for more than 10 years, is because he wants to do it. He's enthusiastic about doing it, and he's doing it with the audience, right? Yep. He's listening to them. He's talking to them. He's not always doing what they want him to do, but he's engaging with them. And I think that's super important.
I mean, I think the 2 best podcasts I have ever been involved in, Buzz Out Loud and Make Me Smart, with all due respect to the shows I'm doing now, including the one with you, which are amazing.
Sure. But let's face it, it's a thing.
It's a matter
Buzz
of
Out
degrees.
Loud kind of,
Exactly. It's a thing. It's just the evolution of Buzz Out Loud. So there you go. But those 2 shows both were born out of, I mean, literally, we were pitched on doing a podcast at CNET in 2005 by a boss who was like, it seems like you guys have really fun lunch conversations. And there's like a lot of you talk about tech a lot because you're actually nerds. Maybe we should experiment with this new thing called podcasting. podcasting. And it was the exact same thing with Make Me Smart at Marketplace. Everybody was like, oh, you have great chemistry when you talk to Kai. And every time I would come on Marketplace, he would say, Molly, make me smart about this topic. And I was like, that's a great name for a podcast. The end.
Yeah.
That's how the best stuff is born.
Yeah, you have to have that shared interest. You have to have that dynamism. And like you said, the identification that like Molly and Tom seem to have conversations that we find entertaining was I think, a surprise to both of us, but also complimentary and
Exactly.
and perfect for the podcast medium, which was brand new. You know, like you said, there were like 3 of us who were like, we should do the podcast thing. How does that happen?
Right.
And they were nice enough to let me ride in on the Molly Wood brand that was starting with Buzz Report, right? Which is why we got Buzz Out Loud.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was wonderful. It was super fun.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And still is in the It's a Thing form.
Yeah, exactly. And It's a Thing format. It's still an amazing conversation. And then finally, I would posit, and tell me if you agree, that maybe the one other thing, and sort of on this topic that media outlets get wrong about podcasting, is scale. How much they're going to get and how much they actually need.
Yeah, I would add to that, it's not just the scale, but also the metric, right? I think, like you said, a lot of them think money, or they even think audience. And so they think the scale needs to be big. We need to make a lot of money. We need to get a lot of audience. And the fact is, a podcast can be very beneficial for brands because it's got engagement, because it actually takes your super fans and makes them love you even more. That was the magic of Buzz Out Loud at CNET. It was a popular podcast too, but its real magic was it took the CNET fans and made them more CNET fans,
right,
because they felt bonded to the show. And I think that gets undervalued by a lot of companies.
Yeah. Even in the world of Comic-Con, I think brands still struggle with the power of fandom as a force that they need. Yeah.
Look anywhere, politics and elsewhere, and the entities that understand fandom are the entities that are doing inexplicably well.
Yes, exactly. Like us. There's just one thing left to do before we go. Time to find out which of your 3 facts is a lie. I am going to stick with my original answer because you still can't convince me that Bill Gates was on a dance floor. I know he might be like a secret partier, but I'm not convinced.
It was the very last Comdex. It was the PC Mag party. He was surrounded by security guards, so I couldn't say I danced with him, but we hit the dance floor at the same time.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa!
I wish I could remember the song that was playing, but yeah, Bill Gates was out there dancing. You were right. I have seen 2 presidents in person. I saw Ronald Reagan when he toured Illinois on campaign in 1980, and I saw Bill Clinton at a White House press conference where Wolf Blitzer did step on my foot, but did not apologize.
Oh, dang it. So I was right that it sounded familiar. I was like,
Yep.
I've heard this Wolf Blitzer. Oh, but he didn't say sorry.
Yeah.
I love the cleverness, by the way, of just like calling out Wolf Blitzer by throwing that lie in there.
He was a busy man. I was an
didn't say
intern.
sorry.
You know, it's totally understandable. By the way, Bunny Carlos, the drummer from Cheap Trick, also stepped on my foot once, as did Robert Scoble. So I have a series of famous people stepping on my feet.
Fascinating. And who among them said sorry? None?
None of them.
Some? Kindness costs you nothing, people.
To be fair, I'm not sure all of them knew they stepped on my foot, but yeah.
If Bill Gates had stepped on your foot, he would not have apologized.
I didn't
either.
get that close to Bill Gates or Bill Clinton. And the Bills are very well protected in this world.
That's a good story that I did not know after these many years. There's always something to learn.
Finally, yeah.
Finally.
That was
All
tough.
right, Tom, you're the best. Thank
Aw,
you.
you too.
Thanks for doing this with me. And tell our listeners where they can find one of your many, many, many podcasts.
Yeah, if you want to look up what I do, TomMerritt.com is the website that collects it all. But it'sathing.me is the show that Molly and I do. You should absolutely check that out. And the main driver that I do is Daily Tech News Show at dailytechnewsshow.com.
Amazing. Thanks to you, Tom, for being my guest. And thank you to the Podcast 360 team. This has been so fun.
Thank you for listening to Podcast 360, where you experience a 360-degree view of podcasting. Special thanks to the Podcast Academy and DCP Entertainment. Follow us on social media at The Ambies and at DCP Official on Instagram. And subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode.